find that our graduates are more likely to be in those places that are sometimes hardest to fill in terms of those nursing positions. Rural hospitals, where you may not have as many nursing programs, but you often may have a community college nursing program nearby, and they're going to be much more likely to be community college trained nurses. Places that are not just the hospital settings, assisted living, other types of program areas, we have found over the years that they are more likely to be community college nurses in those harder to fill settings. So we do feel a really important role by spreading the nurses throughout the state, not just concentrated where the universities may be concentrated, and into those facilities where nurses are needed, not just in the big hospitals.
I also like to look at data on those programs that are really producing the workforce needed in rural communities. So like mental health and like corrections, we've had chronic workforce shortages in some areas of the state. And one of the surprising things doing this modeling was we expected the southeastern part of the state to be in shortage for registered nurses. It was in shortage for licensed practical nurses, and surprisingly, it was not in shortage for registered nurses. So I began to dig into the data to begin to understand, okay, what's going on? And it turns out that those programs in the southeastern part of the state, particularly for licensed practical nurses, they have retention rates in rural communities like 80%, which is unheard of. It's enormous. It's just enormous. This pocket of programs in southeastern North Carolina, from Southeastern Community College, Robison Community College, over 80% of their licensed practical nurse grads are going into rural communities. In general, baccalaureate prepared registered nurses do not go into rural communities at the same rates as our associate degree or LPN. But surprisingly, UNC Pembroke is putting nearly 50% of their BSN grads into rural communities. 50%. So 1 out of every 2 almost grads from UNC Pembroke BSN program is going into a rural community. The closest competition was 26%, which was Fayetteville State, which was doing also a nice job. UNC Pembroke is, as usual, serving its local community, which is incredibly important because if you look at the data, that area, Robeson County, is always ranked 100 out of 100 counties in terms of health outcomes. It's an important piece in terms of addressing health outcomes, particularly in that area where we have higher chronic disease, higher diabetes, and that nursing workforce is critically needed.